here anytime I'm looking at like a farming game, and especially if it's another pixelated farming game, it always, almost always gets compared to Stardew Valley. And I am guilty. I do it too. Kind of hard not to. But yeah, a lot of people are like, "Oh, it's just the Stardew Valley ripoff." But I mean, like, I don't know, there's really only so much you can do with a farming simulator, I guess. But there are a lot of farming simulators, and for the most part, they all feel and even look pretty different, in my opinion. So, let's see what this video says. Why are farming games called Stardew Valley ripoffs?
You've probably seen it in the comment section of a video about pretty much any modern farming game. The classic, this is just a ripoff of Stardew Valley. It's pretty much been a joke in the community.
Like, okay, Fields of Mistria looks totally different. I want to try it so bad.
For a while, and you can ignore it. Play whatever games you want, regardless of what people say. But do these claims hold water? What's unique about Stardew Valley that causes all of these comments in the first place? Let's start by talking about the farming genre in general. First of all, people talk about farming games like they're online multiplayer games. For instance, if Fortnite gets popular, that's actively drawing players away from other shooter games. And if an online multiplayer game has no player base, it is dead. And as a gaming community, we have to stop having this type of discussion about single-player games. There is no such thing as a Stardew Valley killer, because no matter what happens, you can go back and play Stardew Valley just like you always have.
Oh yeah, I have played the absolute living shit out of Stardew Valley. I have like hundreds of hours in it, I think. I can go back and play it plenty of times because it's just so cozy, and I don't know, I just love it.
You can have your cake and eat it too, and have a little something on the side, plus a little drink to go with it. The discussion I want to have today isn't about some kind of dethroning of Stardew Valley. It's just about the quality of games in general.
Okay.
By now, it's common knowledge that Harvest Moon kick-started it all, and Stardew Valley was heavily inspired by it. And Harvest Moon
man, Harvest Moon. That was the first farming simulator I played. Harvest Moon Friends of Mineral Town, I think, on the Game Boy. Holy shit, did it ever, like... Oh man, I played the absolute hell out of it. I got so far, and I think the biggest achievement you can get is buying the vacation home, and I had almost gotten enough money, and then I let my friend borrow the game, and then I never seen it again. So yeah. That's how that went. Magical Melody. See, I played that one, but it was like so long ago, I don't even remember. I don't even remember it. Yeah, this. Oh man. Hold on. The memories. Oh my gosh. Hell yeah. Then they came out with more Friends of Mineral Town so that you could be the girl. Oh man, I would play this again. I want to play it again. I want to play it again. Time to download GBA emulator. Yeah, let's go. Let's go.
is brought up often as a rebuttal to the ripoff argument, usually in the form of, well, Stardew Valley is just a ripoff of Harvest Moon. Now my question is, should Harvest Moon even be a part of this discussion at all? I've made a little timeline of farming games in the style of Harvest Moon, and it's pretty empty until Stardew Valley pops up.
That's true. That's true. I don't feel like there was a lot of these kind of farming simulators until Stardew Valley popped up, and then it just went absolutely insane. Do I have the remake of Friends of Mineral Town? Yeah. Yep, I have that. I played it whenever it came out. I like played the heck out of it, but then I haven't played it since. I think I have it on the Switch. Um but yeah, before Stardew Valley there wasn't a whole lot. I played one of the Rune Factory ones, and that was pretty fun. I still need to play the most Rune Factory. I don't know which one it is. But anyways, I only played one of them. Tides of something. Rune Factory Tides of Destiny. Yeah, Rune Factory Tides of Destiny. Destiny is the one that I played. And I actually really enjoyed it. I liked the combination of like the Harvest Moon kind of feel, but then also like the fighting and whatever. I actually really enjoyed this. Rune Factory Tides of Destiny.
Now, it's no doubt that if Harvest Moon never existed, farming games would look different nowadays, but the modern farming game landscape is directly caused by the success of Stardew Valley.
I don't know if they'll mention it in the video, but Harvest Moon actually is now called Story of Seasons.
Moon is just an extra degree of separation, although I will be bringing it up again later. So here we are, farming games from 2016 and onward. Next step, what games actually fit into this farming game umbrella? Is it just a game that has farming? Minecraft has farming. Cookie Clicker has farming. So clearly not. There needs to be a certain amount of significance to the farming. And we have to make this distinction because it's become a trend to include a smidgen of farming in almost every game. So
it's like a farming life simulator. So you like live on a farm in a town, and you do your farming to create your living, and you can romance and get married and stuff. And I think that's, generally the idea of what people would consider to be a farming game simulator like Stardew Valley.
Sort of how fishing found itself being included in everything before that. And we do have an issue. Farming Simulator is very clearly a farming game, and it's nothing like the types of games we're talking about today.
Yeah, exactly.
We can't argue if this game is a farming game or not.
Well, because this one is like a farming game. You can't go off into the village and speak to the villagers and marry one of them eventually.
So is this game a farming game? Let me defend this. Think about how many things there are to do in Stardew Valley. Foraging, mining, combat, fishing, talking and interacting with everyone, building relationships, marriage. We struggle through everything in the game just to see a cute cutscene with your spouse. There's a term that I first found when it was used to describe my YouTube channel. And before you ask, yes, I name searched myself on Tumblr. There's gold to be found there. The term I found is neighborvania. It's very niche. Upon some research, I just found it used in a couple of forum posts, almost all in the last few months. Side note, I know that Life Sim has also been used to describe these games, but it's also
Yeah, I was gonna say Life Simulator. I've never heard of neighborvania.
also used for like The Sims and Fantasy Life. It's a bit of a larger umbrella term. I find neighborvania to be a very accurate name. Neighbor, of course, referring to building relationships with the townies through gifting, talking, sometimes it's romantical, and then vania. At first glance, it kind of seems like a joke suffix, riffing off of the clunky name of Metroidvania. Clearly, the games we're talking about don't have anything to do with the game series Castlevania, but then I thought about it a little further. Metroidvania. The combination of Metroid and Castlevania refers to maze-like games with a non-linear progression, which is a bit of an oversimplification, but it works. So tie that over to neighborvanias, where you're not just interacting with townspeople, you're doing all of these other things like mining, foraging, even card battles around it. A whole web of systems that all tie back into the interactions in the town. This is the true connecting thread. These aren't farming games, they're neighborvania games. Suddenly, all of these games that have similar systems aren't just similar to Stardew Valley, they're the essentials of the genre. So then we come on to the next question: why does there always seem to be this same set of activities that supplement the neighbor-based gameplay? And I think it's as simple as these are all common ways of utilizing the nature around you. These are in tons of games that aren't neighborvanias. Minecraft has every single system that Stardew Valley has. Even
yeah, because it's just the natural things that you can do in nature. Mining, because you need to make tools. Fishing, obviously, because you can fish and make money by selling your fish. Wood cutting, again, obviously, for building stuff. Same with stones. And whatever else was listed there. Foraging. Obviously, you find bushes out in nature and stuff, so you collect the berries.
Games like Elden Ring have foraging now. It's just a thing you do in games. Of course, sometimes there's variances. Sometimes you'll have bug catching and hunting, and sometimes some of the usual pillars won't be there. Different games tend to have different focuses as well, such as Sunhaven going all in on combat and adventuring, or Animal Crossing lacking any combat at all. Yes, I'm including Animal Crossing as a neighbor.
Not true! The tarantulas can attack you, and you have to run and jump over the holes.
These are simply the basics of any game focused on rural life. Immutable, non-negotiable. Just like it'd be silly to criticize a platformer for having similar platforming to Mario, it's similarly silly to criticize the similarities of neighborvanias that are essential to the genre. And there are some genres out there that naturally are going to be more similar than others. Visual novels tend to be very similar, so that makes the few differences they do have that much more important. So then, what needs to be different between neighborvanias? The most important thing to me is the setting. This will affect what kinds of things you forage, fish, fight, grow, pretty much everything. Most games choose somewhere on the scale between the modern world and a fantasy world. This is the same scale that Stardew Valley itself and the hot new neighborvania game, Fields of Mystria, both fall on. Roots of Pacha is pretty unique, taking place in prehistoric times.
Oh, I have this game also on my wish list, to the surprise of nobody. Hello, Loki! How are you doing?
Your work in farming and ranching has you learning to domesticate animals in the first place and being the first to discover crops. On the other end of the spectrum, we have Little Known Galaxy, taking place in the future and in space, and you get new crops from visiting planets and taking samples. And if your game is still based in the modern...
Actually, I think I have that on my... You know what? Safe to say, probably most of the games on here are in my wish list, okay? I'm just gonna say that.
world, you can make it different by just being in a different place of the modern world. Being set in Australia might as well be a different planet for us Americans. When I played Dinkum, there's a lot of animals I just straight up did not recognize. And that's one of the big things that brought joy when I played the game.
Oh, I didn't know Dinkum was based in Australia. What? I had no idea.
Is so important, and just by being a little unique, I think justifies the existence of another neighborvania game. To a lesser extent, we have unique HUD and style. I've seen the toolbar specifically brought up in arguments that a game is too similar because the toolbar is the same.
Really? Really? How different can you make a freaking toolbar? Wow.
There are neighborvania games that don't have a toolbar, and most of the time, I think they're worse for it. This is a bit of a case where when we complain about the similarities of a genre, it causes future games to change things just for the sake of being different.
Fae Farm! I loved that game. It was fun.
This specifically is territory that we don't want to get into. But moving on, even if the HUD is the same, just the style of the HUD can make a huge difference. Games that find themselves using that rustic, woody interface similar to Stardew Valley are going to hear that rip-off argument a lot more often. And our last different factor between games, this one's a big one, putting a little stank on one of the usual processes. This could be
I'm gonna go ahead and take a wild guess that this happens where everyone said, oh, it's a Stardew Valley ripoff. It happens because Stardew Valley, it wasn't really like the first of its kind, because like Harvest Moon, but it was the first in, I guess, most recent times that came after Harvest Moon, and it was such a great game and so memorable and so replayable that because it quote unquote came first, anything that comes after it is going to get compared to it. That's what I think. That's my guess. That is my guess.
Be magic, allowing you to complete mundane tasks in a quick, flashy way. It could be card battles instead of traditional combat. It could be having a hand on building your town instead of simply existing within it. Really, the sky is the limit here, having something like this alongside a unique setting, and that's where we get some of the greats of the genre. Then there's always the details, character designs, art styles, story. That's right.
Oh, Coral Island is so good. Coral Island is just so good. It's so good. Honestly, I feel just as good playing Coral Island as I do when I play Stardew Valley. I love it. Everything's a Harvest Moon clone. Exactly. What, Ketsuya? What?
Right, story is just a detail. Another big aspect of neighborvanias is making your own stories from interactions through the NPCs. Some of the most often talked about aspects of Stardew Valley are Marnie and Lewis's secret relationship, Abigail maybe being the wizard's daughter, or just who the best marriage candidate is. Ultimately, whatever story is there is just to push the player to explore and experience everything else. So now, we've come to the crux of the issue. What would be considered a ripoff? There's nuance to be had here. You know those mobile games that are essentially just a 2D Mario game but with some rando running and jumping around? We could all agree that that would be a ripoff. There's not really anything on that level for Stardew Valley though, not to my knowledge at least. The game that's been the hot topic, getting a lot of heat, has been Fields of Mystria, partly because it's one of the farming games meeting a lot of success. And
I didn't even know that. All I've heard about Fields of Mystria is how amazing it is.
it's indeed a case where the game hasn't made a drastic effort of being different by being in space or Australia. It leads a bit more into the fantasy side, but it's still a small rural town, similar activities outside of farming, and the mines work just about the exact same. Random ladders and an elevator every 5 floors. And there's also people who will go, oh, it's also sprite art, and that doesn't track for me. Maybe it's just a sign that times have changed, but in my mind, 50% of games are sprite art, 50% of games are polygonal. And nowadays, sometimes they're both. Y'all, there's a lot of sprite art games.
Yeah.
That used to be the only type of game. It's just an art style. But clearly, there's something about this game that people love, where somehow it's made its distinction from Stardew Valley through the details. Care has been put into the character interactions. There are some things it expands upon that Stardew Valley doesn't. So can we call it a ripoff still? For me, there's one rule that I have that'll push a game into ripoff territory, and it's chasing the money. With all the games I've mentioned so far, there's love there, you know? The developers had a desire to make something great inspired by a great game. There are games that don't do that. And I want to bring us back to nuance here. This doesn't mean that every dev that worked on one of the upcoming games I'm about to mention didn't put genuine love into their work. But not all games are made by single people or small teams that just want to make something cool. There was a period shortly after Stardew Valley released when farming games, for a lack of a better word, spurted out of the ether. Like just months after Stardew popped off, the immediate, oh, I gotta do something to catch this wave. And I want to
Yeah, because everyone's seen the success of Stardew Valley, and they were like, "Oh, okay, I'll make a game like that, and it will be extremely successful. Let's go."
Mention that there's a difference between people who saw Stardew Valley and were inspired by it and did a quick little project because of it. It's specifically the ones that are like, oh, I see money here. Larger companies were a bit behind on this. Their ideas for farming came a bit later, and sometimes with $70 price tags and a goddamn farming battle pass. There's a couple of extreme versions of this farming game greed, and I'm naming names. Dreamland Village Life took Kickstarter money and ran. Harvest Moon, specifically One World and Light of Hope, taking the idea of a ripoff to—
Oh my gosh. Because I basically grew up with Harvest Moon, anytime I see that name, I will instantly put it on my wish list. Then I learned that Harvest Moon isn't technically Harvest Moon anymore because all the people who made Harvest Moon are now working under Story of Seasons. They made Story of Seasons now, and Harvest Moon is just, it's completely different. It's actually not that great anymore from what I've heard, and I mean, I put Harvest Moon One World on my wish list or something. Like, I was excited when it came out. But then I seen it. And it just looks so disappointing. Like, the world is just so empty, I've heard. And lifeless. Like, look, oh my god. What the hell?
next level even using the name of a beloved franchise, hoping nobody will notice that it's not the same series. And this is a big deal for the genre, right? This is the biggest name. It created the genre. For it to get co-opted into
oh my god, what is that?
shitty little mobile games, how does that make the genre look? The next big set of stinkers came courtesy of the September 2022 Nintendo Direct. And upon hearing those words, some of you are having war flashbacks. A Wonderful Life remake,
The Wonderful Life remake. See, when I played Harvest Moon: A Wonderful Life on the GameCube, oh man, it was like, I loved it. And that's all I just remember loving it, honestly. And then when they remade it, I still loved it. But I got really bored with it really fast because there's not much to do. There's really nothing to do. So it kind of devolved into me just waking up, petting my cows, watering the plants, and then sleeping, and then repeat. So I feel like they maybe should have added more to the game. But it is what it is.
Farm, Rune Factory 3 Remake, Atelier Ryza, and Harvestella, all announced on the same day. Now that's not to say that all these games are what I'd call ripoffs, but this day was a huge reason why a lot of people started to despise any and every farming game that came out afterwards. Just a complete saturation of half-baked farming mechanics from big name companies. Even Animal Crossing, a year and a half after release, slipped it in. And yes, I am saying that the success of Stardew Valley directly
You know what? This was actually really good. When they added this, I was so happy. It's really cute. It's really cute.
influenced a small side mechanic in Animal Crossing. I'm more willing to call generic AAA farming RPG a ripoff than a smaller game that more closely follows Stardew Valley's blueprint. Because for me, it's more about the intentions. And speaking of, this also includes anyone who's ever referred to their own game as Stardew Valley 2. Sorry, no exceptions. All of this really set the stage for recent games we've been seeing getting hit with criticism a lot harder than normal. Fae Farm, which released about a year after that direct, is good. No blowing anyone out of the water or anything, but it's a solid addition to the neighborvania pool. Yet it tends to get thrown into the low-effort money chase pool of games, although I think the price didn't help things. But it's a unique world with a bunch of unique mechanics, almost all overlooked because it exists in that big amorphous blob of big company attempts at farming. All of this to say, you don't have to play and enjoy all of these games. Some of the small differences make them good for niche audiences, just like small differences in every other game in every other genre. Farming games just got what I can only describe as a chaotic growth phase that gave many of the games a bad rap. There's a Pokemon saying that I really like: every Pokemon is someone's favorite Pokemon, and I think that can apply here. Every neighborvania game is someone's favorite neighborvania game, just because of the small differences. Also, I don't expect anyone to start calling them all neighborvania games. I'm still gonna call them farming games. I just found that further specifying the genre was useful for this discussion.
Oh, I can't believe he's planting the seeds like that. No. No. You ruined the farm. Not supposed to plant them like that. They have to be separated. Yeah, I don't know, like, freaking everyone complains that there's too many farming games. Okay, who cares? There's also so many freaking first-person shooter games. No one complains about that.
I've sort of held off on weighing in on all this. The arguments can get very passionate, and with my recent coverage of Fields of Mystria, I started to see it creep into my own comments. So I thought I'd throw my hat into the ring, think about it a bit, and gush about my love of the term neighborvania. Let me know what you think. I feel like I had to be a bit more diplomatic here because I don't want to be in the YouTube video that gets reacted to, but y'all can go crazy. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one. Good night.
Well, your farming video just got reacted to, so